Okay. So everybody, welcome again. Today we have our guest, Abubakar Gana, who is also our founder and CEO of Outliers Institute. Outliers Institute is an institute that teaches people about business, about how they can run their business successfully, and also how they can access funding and the likes. So Abubakar has been an active player for a while, and Outliers Institute is one of the portfolio companies of Founders Institute, which is the gold standard for incubation and accelerator in Nigeria. In fact, across it's a global company, but in Nigeria is one of the best. Even in the globe, is one of the best. Together with the likes of I can't even remember the name, the one that Michael Seabell, Y Combinator, exactly. So Humfo Consult is a business is similar to Outliers Institute, but we are more of like first thing we do is help people set up companies, which is called company setup. Help them, register their business, start the business, make pitch decks, create company profiles, and the like. And also, we do business consulting and we do training. So this is what we do. And this Humpo Talk series is one platform that we create to help and encourage entrepreneurs to hear stories from people who are trying to do something, who has done something that they're trying to do, or they are at least one stage or some few steps ahead of what they're trying to do. It's supposed to serve as an inspiration for people trying to build businesses. So today we have our guest, and Abubakar, welcome on our show. And this show is being recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube later. So Abubakar, please welcome on the show and you can introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, for having me on the show. And thank you to the team for setting this up on such short notice. And thank you, people of the audience, those that tuned in, and I guess those who are going to watch later on. And I guess, yes, you are accurate. We are in the business development space with my company as well, just to give a very quick background as to how we basically got there. So if I'm correct, the point of the meeting is to just kind of talk about the experience and how we basically got to build the company. Is that correct?
Exactly. It will include some questions and answers, but my first question will also be there. Tell us about how you started, and so you can just go ahead.
Okay. So just a quick question. Is this something we can kind of, I guess, be doing questions and answers as we're doing the interview, or is it going to be straight at the end?
No, we are going to be doing questions and answers.
Okay. So I guess without further ado, let me get straight into it then. So Outliers, how did we go about starting the company, right? So just to give you a very quick background of myself, I'm someone who has had the privilege of living in different countries. And one question always kind of stuck in my mind, like, why are all these countries doing, better than Nigeria, right? And that kind of inspired me to study economics in university. And at the same time, I was also kind of interested in business. So I wanted to see how we can, if there's a way to potentially help the economy while, doing that through business, if that makes sense. So I studied economics and business in university. And when I finished, I was kind of inclined towards, making an impact like immediately. And the quickest way to do that was through public sector. So I did my NYSC in the public sector in Nigeria. But then there was one pressing problem that kept, staring right at my face at the time while I was doing NYC. And that was the fact that, many of my fellow corporate colleagues couldn't answer one question. And that question was, I always asked them, what do you guys want to do after NYC? And because of the situation at the time, like, there was very few jobs available in the market. Unfortunately, that's still the case today. So whenever I would ask them, what would you do after NYC? You see them saying things like, Omo, now to just give my CV and see what happens, or I don't really know what to do. But then at the same time, I was also meeting, individuals who are doing very well in various industries. So I just thought, what if you introduce person A, who doesn't know what he's doing, or should I say person A who doesn't know what to do, to person B who's doing very well at something? Maybe some magic can happen. So essentially, that's the core concept that we, I guess, built our company on, being able to just basically transfer skills from people who are knowledgeable in certain areas and different aspects to to people who want to learn those certain skills and, build their own competencies in those areas. So just to give a very short pitch of our company, you know how when you go through accelerator programs, is every week you guys have to kind of pitch, your company, and you have to kind of refine. So whenever I'm gonna pitch my company, I always kind of pause and think, okay, which one should I do? Should I take this one? Should I do what variation of it? But essentially, I guess the core problem we're trying to solve is the fact that, there's so many people that, want jobs. And unfortunately, there aren't really many jobs in the country, right? So you see people starting informal businesses as a solution. Now, the problem is people don't really do very well with these informal businesses that they start. So you see them either failing their businesses or they give up entirely. So where we come in is basically with training and supports, like you mentioned. So one of the products that we launched recently is called Lunable, and that's a access to finance problem that we aim to solve with the product. There's also an access to market product that we're working on. And there's also the general skills transfer, like I mentioned, between people who have experience and skills in certain areas and people who are looking for those skills. So that's kind of like an overview of, I guess, how we basically, started the idea and basically how we kind of built upon that initial concept.
That's a very good one. And so let's just get into it. So my first question would be, what do you think an entrepreneur must learn? There are so many things an entrepreneur must learn, but what do you think are like maybe the main things, the most important things?
I think one of the main things that I think is important for an entrepreneur to learn is perhaps doing rather than talking, if that makes sense. I know at different stages, or at least the earlier stages of business, right? You have a lot of people that plan and plan and plan and plan. They get stuck in that planning phase and they end up wasting a lot of time, not actually going to market. And that usually results in them either not really doing that business eventually, or they might not have the, I guess, product ready by the time that the market, wants it. Or, for example, I have this friend that was working on this business idea. It was a startup. And essentially, this guy was planning and planning and planning and planning, this business, right? Hello, am I here?
Yeah. Sorry.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so this guy was just planning and planning and planning their business, right? And then it came to a time that this was right before COVID. So COVID, happened. Just to give you guys an idea of the idea, it was like a marketplace for different products and services in Nigeria, right? And essentially, COVID came and it seemed like a very good time to launch this product since everybody was online and using their phones and devices and stuff like that. So it makes sense for people to kind of go into marketplaces, right? So at the time, the person had a beta version of the product ready, and it was put into the market, but then it wasn't, I guess, finished per se, obviously as a beta, right? So they pushed it to the market and it got a good reception, and then this person kind of took it down because they wanted to plan better and refine it. So what happened by the time that they were actually ready to launch it, after they've done their planning and stuff like that, the market kind of moved on already, because at the time people just got used to using Instagram for posting their businesses and stuff like that, as opposed to I guess having a marketplace that would do all of that. So I guess just get the main idea across. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the best thing that people can do for themselves, and one of the things that they need to learn as soon as possible, is just to take action and don't plan too much. If your plan doesn't involve taking action, then it's not really a complete plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and I can really connect it to one of the things. For example, this series that we're having, I've always had the idea that I want to bring in entrepreneurs to share their story, but in my mind, I always believed I need to have a space in Abuja, a good place, because most of the good people go there and all this, and it's going to cost all this amount of money. I think in my head, the launching date was supposed to be 2026 or something like that. But one day like that, just like we're having this conversation, I was having a conversation with a colleague, and we are having, and it was really interesting. And I felt we're in technology era, and I know this technology. Why don't we start, even if I think maybe the physical one is going to be extremely better, but why can't we just start with this one where we just do it virtually and record and people see? And that's here we are today. So I can understand what you're saying. I can connect with it. So the next question would be, so must someone learn about entrepreneurship before they start? Or do you think they should start and learn? Or do you think they should learn something small, start, and then expand their knowledge? What is your take on that?
Well, I think with anything in life, there's always learning on the journey, right? And I think that's the type of learning that is, I guess, it puts everything into context, if that makes sense. So for example, you could, and like I mentioned, I studied business in university, right? So some of the things I was learning at the time, I couldn't really put them into context because I didn't have business experience at that time. So you could learn about things such as, let's say, value chain analysis, the marketing piece and stuff like that. But if you're not really doing business, then you just kind of understand them as theories and concepts. But then when you're doing business, you basically kind of apply those things that you learn directly to whatever it is that you're doing. And at that point in time, it becomes a lot more relevant. So I guess to kind of answer your question, I think, yes, doing a bit of learning before, I guess, starting is definitely helpful. It can kind of, act as a guide for you. But at the same time, I also think it's, as equally important or even more important to actually just, get straight into it and, learn on the job.
Okay, that's very fantastic. I've always had that belief, but coming from you, I think, yeah, it makes sense. So, if you don't mind, would you, this one you can skip or you can say you're not comfortable, but can you explain to us your business model at Outliers Institute, like the business model that you're currently using?
The business model that we're doing, I'm going to skip it.
Okay.
I'm joking. So the business model that we use, I mean, so like I mentioned, we have different products, right? So the first one that we launched was the access to finance product. And just to kind of give you guys a quick background of, that product, how a lot of people say that, they need money to start their businesses or grow their businesses, right? And at the same time, we have a lot of organizations that, create funds specifically to give out to businesses. So why are people still saying that, they can't find money when there's organizations that are just giving money, right? So we basically spoke with these organizations and we found that the main problem is the fact that lots of businesses or people that say that they need money for their businesses, they're people that are not considered to be fundable or bankable. And what that simply means is that these people don't really have the necessary foundations to receive money and, grow their businesses. So to put it, simply, these people wouldn't know how to kind of manage their finances. These people wouldn't know how to, make profits, or their businesses aren't really profitable. They wouldn't know what to use the money for when they even receive it. So, it's just like, putting the money into fire or quicksand, whatever you may call it. And, just those core principles, people just not really knowing what to do with money. That's why they don't, get that money. So we decided to kind of mitigate this problem by creating a program that would basically teach those foundations and then introducing people to financiers at the end of it. So that business model is, I guess, pretty simple. We're charging the entrepreneurs or people going into the program. And that's one way we are generating revenue from that program. And just to kind of give a bit of insight as to different ways we can charge it, another organization could do the same thing, but rather than charging the businesses that come into the program, they could charge the financiers themselves. So it could be a situation where they would train these guys, and anybody that ends up getting funding at the end of the program, the organization that hosted the training would basically take a commission from that. So I guess with business models, there's like different things that you can do. And it's not something that is set in stone. You can always try different things and play around. Like I mentioned, it's more about doing and seeing the results and playing around and improving. So it's not something that's set in stone. You can always refine whatever you start off with. But there's so many different things that you can do to I guess, generate revenue for your company?
Well, I'm glad during the conversation you started talking about the question that I wanted to ask next, which was
Yeah.
is every business fundable?
Is every business fundable? Well, I'm not an investor yet, but I think the most important thing to kind of, I guess, realize and understand, right, is that when it comes to financing and like investments and funding, like there's I guess a bit of nuances involved. So when you talk about, getting funding, right, you have to kind of understand what you're doing first. Then you can kind of know the type of investors that you should look for. So beyond that, I think that's like the core principle to understand. If, for example, I'm a startup, my options would be different to, let's say, if I had an SME business. And just to clarify, just because I'm starting a business now doesn't mean I'm a startup automatically, because startups are kind of defined as, businesses that are enabled by technology and they have, massive scalability opportunities. But yeah, so if you understand kind of where you fit, you can kind of be able to tell where to look for money and who to look for to fund you, essentially. And with that as well, I think, just to dive a little deeper, every organization that invests in businesses also have their own things that they're looking for. So for example, yes, I'm a startup. And for example, let's say with Outliers, we are currently in the edtech space. So that's essentially means that if we're looking for investors to fund our business, that means we can look at perhaps angel investors that would be interested in, funding edtech, or we can look at impact investors because those type of investors basically invest in businesses that make an impact and also generate revenue. And, we can look at VCs that also, are interested in, edtech. And it's just about understanding the thesis of these different types of investors and just knowing who to look out for and reach out to. So I guess I don't know if that answers your question. Let me just bring it back. Is every business fundable, right? So I guess in theory, yes, if you find the right investors or if you are what the investors are looking for.
Okay, that kind of give it a really good deep understanding that people can really use. But like I asked the question because for me, I think there are just businesses that are not fundable. And yes, like you said, with the foundations, yes, every business can be fundable. But when you want to run a business whereby you don't want to keep record, you want to own 100% of it, you want to do XYZ, there are some certain characteristics that some businesses have that I think because of that, they're just not fundable. Or you want to do a business that is 100% reliant about your lifestyle. You want to become an influencer, social media influencer, and you need money, somebody to give you money to buy a camera and be going around the world and shooting places. These businesses are like literally non-fundable because their fundamentals do not really click into what you just said. For example, I can give you the money because I want to support you, like I'm an angel. But tomorrow, if you fell sick, how do I recover the money? Some stuff like that, etc. So, but with your core analysis, people can really differentiate for themselves. What do I really want to do? So I think you can, let me ask another question on that before we move into the next. So what do somebody needs to do if they really need funding? Like since you're teaching that, what do somebody needs to do to their business if they really need funding?
So I do have, I guess, a slightly different opinion to what you just said, but I guess we can get back to that a little later. But just to answer this question, can you remind me the question again real quick?
What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
on follow up on the question, what do somebody
Yeah.
need to do if they need funding? Like, what's that the
Okay, what does
basics?
somebody need?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess it just depends on the stage that they're at, right? So let's use the scenario that, you don't have any cash, you don't have any assets, and you just have an idea, right? And you want to get funded, for your business venture. Is it okay for us to use this example?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, or should we ask the audience if it's okay as well?
The audience, if it is okay, maybe type it on mute and say.
Should we use this example or should we use a business that's existing? If you guys are here, somebody should raise their hand. Or so Khalid, it seems like it's just me. We can, I guess let's just go ahead with that example. Okay. So yeah, so you have an idea and you don't really have, resources to start, and you're looking for funding, right? So I think, like I mentioned earlier to you, I think the most important thing that entrepreneurs need to do, especially early stage entrepreneurs, is essentially take action. Do more rather than do more than you talk, if that makes sense. And with that mindset in mind, you'd find that people would be able to kind of show proof of their tenacity and dedication towards whatever business it is that they want to start, right? So for example, like you mentioned with this Humfo Business Talk series that you started, you could have waited until you got the money to basically get the space and get the cameras, get the lights and stuff like that. But you decided to kind of break down the idea to its core fundamentals. So what is it that I'm trying to do? I'm trying to basically facilitate interactions or meetings with experienced entrepreneurs and the audience. Do I really need a space to do that, right? Do I really need the space to do that with the technology that we have today? We have Zoom. I can easily just use my WhatsApp, create get the Zoom link, send it to people, and have them basically join without them having to come to a physical space. And just breaking down that idea that you did to its core fundamentals of just being that facilitating platform, you're able to basically start whatever it is that you had in mind, which is this Humfo Talk series. You're able to start that without any, I guess, funding, right? And what could happen for you is the more people you invite and the more traction this product gets, you might find that you might find individuals that be interested in making it better and investing in you as the individual that's basically, brought this idea that you had to life, and you're really putting in the time and the effort to make it grow. And essentially that dedication in and of itself is what would essentially incentivize or encourage someone to basically invest in you. Because at the early stages of the business, right, whatever forecast you're going to do for your business, so like all the projections, okay, I'm going to make $100,000 by the end of the year, or 200, whatever the case may be, like everybody's just going to look at those figures because everybody just knows that, okay, this guy hasn't really started. You can only project, and you don't really know how it's going to end up. So people are more investing in you as the individual as opposed to looking at the projections. Because I think that's another misconception that a lot of people have, that when it comes to, I guess, investors, that it's just one type of individual. Because one type of individual that would just basically say, okay, if I give you this money, all I'm looking for is my money at the end of the month. I want you to pay me back the 10% that we agreed of my share. You have to pay me back every month, or at the end of the year, at the end of the quarter, whatever you guys agree upon. But that's not really the case. There are people that really understand, the game, especially, for example, in the startup space. Like most early investors kind of look at things long term, and the way they kind of think about making money with you isn't, I guess, those 10% dividends that they would receive at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter or the year. But if this business, let's say, is valued at $1 million now, right? If I give them $100,000, I'll take 10% of the business. So that 100,000 that I'm giving them, somebody like Khalid now that has been doing this business talk through series, by the time I give him this 100%, he'll be able to employ staff. He'll be able to do X, Y, Z that would basically take his company to the next level. He'll be able to form partnerships with X, Y, Z organizations, and his valuation would increase. So rather than that, $1 million valuation, perhaps by the time that you want to look for money, the next time, you would probably be at, let's say, 3 million, 4 million. So that 100,000 that they invested, that 10% of that 300,000 or 400,000 of the next valuation is obviously more than the 100,000. So that's an exit opportunity for them to basically cash out. So sorry, what was the question again?
No, you answered the question. Yeah, I think we can go to the next one.
I wanted to summarize, but that's fine.
Okay. The summarization is what do somebody needs
Yeah.
to do? And I think with the conversation, you are saying, okay, start with action, do something so that people can see,
Yeah.
seek out the
Break
right
it, break,
sets of
break it down,
investors, something like that.
break it down, break, break your idea, incorporate something going, and just keep building from that. I promise you, with the right intention, God is going to help you.
So I think there are a few things we take. Let me highlight it for the audience. Based on what you said, is start somewhere. Break it to the test principles. That's what we call it. I think the term test principle. What problem do you really want to solve, and start solving the problem, no matter how little, with whatever resources you have. Seek the right investors. These are what you just said. Seek the right set of investors, and let's see how it goes. Okay, is that right?
Yes, that's about it.
Okay. So let's jump a little bit now. Did you have bad moments in your startup journey, in your business journey, that you almost feel like you wanted to give up?
Of course, countless of times. It's an entire roller coaster.
Okay. Can you give us like a specific example, one of those?
A specific example of a time where I was feeling down. Well, I think the one that comes to my mind is just one time where we've kind of essentially we had goals, right? And we weren't basically able to meet them. And it seemed like what we wanted to do would not basically come into fruition, right? And I remember, at that point in time, you know how it is when you're, you're doing a business, right? It's not something that is set in stone, and it's not something that is, I guess, somewhat easy. You might have the best intentions of helping people and, delivering value and stuff like that. But really, at the end of the day, like if you're unable to deliver that, then whatever hard work that you put in the past to, bring this concept to life, or bring whatever solution you're, trying, deliver the value that you intend to do with your solution, all of the work that you put in, if you don't end up, delivering at the end of the day, I guess I wouldn't say it's pointless, right? But then it's something that if it doesn't get done and you don't end up seeing some of the fruits of your labor, it might be something that would seem a little discouraging. And some people even think about how perhaps they might have wasted, their time, or they could have been doing something else and they might have been better off. But I think for me, what's really most important and what really helps me in situations when I'm down, or when, I'm a little discouraged, or just when things aren't going my way, is just remembering the core reason as to why I started this journey in the first place. And for me, it's essentially about mitigating that problem. It's about creating an avenue for people to do better with themselves, do better with their lives, with their career, with their businesses specifically. And just seeing how it's still a huge problem today in Nigeria, and not just Nigeria, but other African countries. Just being able to kind of be or provide an avenue for people to get relief in that, aspect of their lives is something that I guess is a goal for me, or like a mission. And essentially, the fact that there's so much work and so much help, available to, I guess, render. That makes sense.
Yeah,
And,
it does.
remembering that and getting on the journey is just something that helps me get by.
Okay, so we're about to start rounding up because we're supposed to do 30
Okay,
to 40 minutes. So I have
that's
two
fine.
more questions. One of them is based on the current dynamics of Nigerian situation,
Mm.
do you see a better future with everything that's happening, or are you a bit skeptical of the future of youth and entrepreneurship in general?
Sorry, I think your audio cut out a bit towards the end. Am I
Oh,
skeptical about
with the future of entrepreneurship in Nigeria?
the future of entrepreneurship in Nigeria? Well, obviously, what's currently going on in the economy is I guess, not an easy one. Like a lot of people are feeling the impact. Everyone is actually feeling the impact. And, I can understand how discouraging it might be for you to just go on social media and constantly see different things happening, not just, I guess, with the FX situation, but perhaps the insecurity, etc., and stuff like that. But, I really think at the end of the day, wherever there are problems, there are also solutions. And I guess our situation is, sorry, hold on 1 second. So sorry about that interruption. So I was just saying, like, wherever there are problems, there are also solutions. And I think this is where the real entrepreneurs thrive. It's an opportunity for people to not just, I guess, solve the problems, but at the same time also, I guess, generate a bit of revenue while doing that. And there was interestingly a workshop that we had sometime last week, and my guest had this very interesting way of defining, I guess, business people. So what I remember is that he had 5 classes, but then there's like 3 that I remember right now off the top of my head. So you have business owners, you have inventors, you have innovators, and you have entrepreneurs. So I give you guys 4. So I remember what he was saying was inventors, or should I say inventors come up with things such as, for example, electricity, right? So the innovators will now come and do something with that electricity and, create something usable out of it. Right. So let's say, I can't really give an example right now off the top of my head because of the industry. Yeah. So you also have, business owners. So these are people who basically buy and sell, right? And then he also had, the category of entrepreneurs. So the difference between the business owner and the entrepreneur, according to his differentiation, was that, the business owner just buys and sells, right? There's no, I guess, product development and, tailored solution to a specific situation. Whereas the entrepreneur would basically see the situation, see the problem, and see an opportunity to solve that problem while also being able to deliver, value, not just, in terms of the problem solution, but also, generating a bit of revenue. So that's the entrepreneur. So that being said, I think with the many problems that we have, there's so many different opportunities for entrepreneurs to basically create value. And I really think, there's hope and opportunity still in the country.
Okay. So last one to round up. With as someone who has been opportune to live in many different countries, do you think what do you make out of the Japa syndrome? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do you make out of it? Maybe as the last take
of Japa.
Yeah, this Japa syndrome that people are thinking when you leave Nigeria, everything is shine and gold. What do you think as someone who has lived in many different countries?
Well, I think it just really comes down to your goal as an individual. Because you might have people that are capable of being proper entrepreneurs, right? They're, more than happy to be in a situation where they identify a problem and they work as hard as they can to solve that problem. And you also have people who, like a friend of mine said, I remember back in the day when we were having this similar conversation, he was like, I was telling him how I want to basically, make an impact in Nigeria, help people, better their lives, etc. And I remember he was saying, Ghana, me, I'm no hero. If I get opportunity, me, I'm going.
Yeah.
So, it just really comes down to the individual. Like if you're the type of person that wants to, stick around and, make impact. And, at the same time, there's so many different opportunities in the country as well. So a lot of people, despite the current, conditions, are still, making decent amounts of money. They're making millions, hundreds of millions, in this current, economy and situation. And I guess, like I said, just comes down to the individual. And some people would prefer to just have, that safety and security of, japping and, getting a stable job wherever it may be, and them getting their consistent income on a monthly basis. They don't, fancy the life of doing business or, doing the struggle of, building companies and stuff like that. They just want to have comfort and stability. And we can't really fault anyone for, whatever direction they decide to go. It's entirely up to you.
Okay. That's very
That's
wonderful.
just my take on it.
I think it was very nice, and I learned so much about today from you with the conversation. And I hope our audience who are currently online with us and those who watch later will also find some important things to do. And thank you for honoring our invitation. And one last thing before you leave, where can they find you? Where
Sorry?
can some people, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? Social media or something?
Oh yeah. Let me. Should I send you my LinkedIn so they can?
Okay, no
or
problem.
should I type it?
No problem. I will share. No problem.
That's fine. Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right, that's it. That's the end of conversations today. Everybody, thank you for honoring the invitation, and we have a wonderful moment with you. And thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. And I guess, like I said, thank you guys for hosting this. And I really encourage and admire the effort that you guys have put together to basically start this. It's definitely necessary, because I really think one sentence can change your life. So if you're able to get guests that would be able to share their valuable experiences and insights, you would have inshallah you'd be able to deliver that impact and help other people do better as well.
Yeah. And good night.
Okay, assalamu alaikum.